this process. Thank you.
Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Chairman, it's a pleasure to get up to speak to the committee stages of the Trade Safeguard Measures Bill. Labor actually supports this bill, and the reason why we support it is because it was introduced by Leanne Dalzell. And I think we can rely on a minister who introduced this bill that doesn't forget things, that can be relied on to act with integrity, that can be relied on to be straight with the media and not to obfuscate. And for all of those reasons, Mr Chairman, I think that this bill probably deserves our support. But I do have a number of questions to the Minister. My first question to the Minister is, given the trouble that he's in, will he still be here when we complete the passage of this bill?
Order. Now, look, we're not getting into the speculative area. There's plenty of scope to debate the purpose, and part one is a big part. So I'd ask the member just to desist from the line that he's on. Thank you. Honourable Phil Goff.
A different line, Mr Chairman. This is a question that was asked on the front page of the Dominion to Mr Banks. Has he actually read the bill? He hasn't read the local electoral bill. Has he read this bill? If he's the minister in charge of this committee stage, our side of the House want to have assurance that the minister has actually read the bill.
A point of order. Louise Upson.
Mr Chair, you spoke only a matter of seconds ago about the content of the bill and the fact that it was quite wide in its scope, and I would ask that you manage that member's relevance, please.
No, look, I don't need any assistance. The member on his feet asked the minister if he had read this bill. I think his references to the paper were unhelpful, but he did not order. But I think he's just inside the line at this stage, and I have cautioned the member, and I caution other members as we proceed. I'm happy to proceed with the debate.
I read that this bill's purpose is to replace an old regime with a new regime. And I want to know, Mr Chairman, whether the new regime will be as reliable as John Key's new regime to lift the bar on ministerial standards. I want to know that because, you know, we've been promised new regimes before and they haven't been delivered. So I want to know whether the new regime that this bill introduces is going to deliver the goods. Because John Key didn't deliver the goods on lifting the bar on ministerial standards. When ministers can mislead the public, obfuscate, forget things, not tell the truth, Mr Speaker, that is not introducing a new regime.
Order. Now, I'm being very tolerant here, but when the member talks about ministers not telling the truth, there are standards here about members being honourable members. And I just think the member ought to be a little bit more careful about how he's phrasing that stuff. Point of order, Honourable Trevor Malley.
The point that I'd like to make, Mr Speaker, is that Mr Goff at no stage suggested that the minister didn't tell the truth in the House, and that is the requirement. You are allowed to say that ministers didn't tell the truth outside the House, and clearly that is the case with this minister.
It's not my understanding of Speaker's rulings. And I'd invite the member to demonstrate to me through Speaker's rulings where my interpretation is not correct. But we'll continue with the honourable member.
Yeah, Mr Chairman. Part one of this bill talks about safeguard investigations. But I want to know whether the minister, what the meaning of the term safeguard measures is. Because there are a lot of things that the public need to be safeguarded against. They need to be safeguarded against ministers that don't tell the truth to the media. They need to be safeguarded against ministers that obfuscate and aren't upfront and honest with the public and the media. And they need to be safeguarded against forgetfulness. Now, can we rely on this minister in the chair to remember what the provisions of this bill are so that he can properly implement them, when he couldn't remember a helicopter ride to the biggest mansion in the country where he was offered $50,000?
I've cautioned the member. This is about the bill, right? And I'll just caution the member again. That's it, right? Phil Goff?
Yeah, Mr Speaker, it is a bill. Yeah, yes, Mr Speaker. Yeah, I've hardly got started. Mr. Chairman, the bill also promotes an efficient, transparent and objective investigative and decision-making processes. Let me repeat that, because that is really important. The bill promotes efficient, transparent and objective investigation and decision-making processes. And I'd like to hear from the Minister and the Chair what he thinks about transparent decision-making, whether things should be upfront and open and honest, and that the law should be followed in that regard. Mr. Speaker, this bill, interestingly, is also about anti-dumping and countervailing duties. Does this mean, Mr. Chairman, could I ask the Minister and the Chair, that if he dumps on Kim.com, that there'll be countervailing action by Kim.com to tell the truth about what he said, Mr. Speaker? I think that's a really good question, and I'd like to hear the Minister's comments on that. It's a countervailing duty, I think, that if your loyalty and your goodwill towards somebody is not reciprocated, who pretends that they can't even remember who you were, even though he spent 2 hours with you, dined with the family, toasted on your birthday party, then you'll expect that person to feel that there has been no countervailing loyalty towards them and that you've been used. And it's little wonder that Kim.com had responded in that way, Mr. Speaker. Clause 5 of this bill is about the Act binding the Crown. Now, Mr. Chairman, I want to ask about that. Is that the Act binding the Crown in the same way that the Cabinet Manual binds the Prime Minister, for example, to uphold and be seen to uphold the highest ethical standards on his ministers? Is that what binding is? It doesn't say much in the bill. It simply says the Act binds the Crown. And I would have thought the Act party. Well, does the Cabinet Manual bind the Prime Minister for his ministers to uphold and be seen to uphold? Propped up the Crown. Well, yeah, the binding and propping up, there might be something in that. Mr. Speaker, Clause 6 of this bill is about notification of a decision or a report. And I wonder if that notification is a bit like notifying the Electoral Commission that a huge donation was made that he then asked the donor to split into 2 parts, contrary to the spirit of the law. Is that the sort...
Order. Honourable Chairman.
For a minister to be in the chair during the committee stage of the debate, they're not allowed to run around the House like this, no matter how scared they are.
Yeah. I'll uphold that. Yes, the Minister and the Chair should not move more than the aisle from the Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is
very boring.
A bill. Well, the Minister might say very boring. I'll tell you what, the country is not bored, Minister, about his escapades and his misleading comments and his obfuscation of what he is doing. And maybe the Minister could explain what he meant when he was asked whether he had declared all his donations. And he said, look, I've never been with Kim.com to Sky City. Now, that's not obfuscation.
A point of order, the Honourable Tom Banks.
Mr. Chairman, the Chairman of the Select Committee, John Hayes, and his colleagues on this side of the House are very, very interested in this debate. This has got this going on by the member for Mount Roskill serves his interest no good. It's contrary to standing orders because it's irrelevant, and I'd like to think that the House would stay in order. The shouting and carping from the parliamentary opposition should cease. Interjections should be rare and reasonable, and we can get on with the important business of this government.
Speaking of point of order, Mr. Speaker.
I'll accept the member's contribution.
Mr. Speaker, my response, in fact, was to an interjection made by the Minister himself.
Yeah.
It's a bit rich for him to be saying that you shouldn't be interjecting.
Now, you can't attack another member through a point of order and talk about richness or anything else, and the member should know that by now. I'm listening very, very carefully to the debate, and it's fair to say that the member in his speech is moving outside the realm of what is acceptable, but then he ducks in again, and I think he's a very senior member, and my tolerance about this, we've had a go on this now, and I'd ask the members to debate more specifically the purposes and Part 1 of the bill. A point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr Chairman, I just want to alert your attention to the fact that this is the second time the member speaking has been interrupted to question relevancy, which is in fact out of order, and the Speaker's rulings are quite clear that the sole judge of relevancy is you as the chairperson, and therefore you shouldn't be questioned by a member abusing the point of order process to interrupt another member speaking.
Well, I think two times, one on each call, is probably not excessive. The member does make a point, and I have assured the House I am listening. And if members wish to test my patience, I'll terminate a few speeches if I think that members have got too far away. Bearing in mind that members have 4 calls, I'm quite prepared to terminate calls if they're not.
I think I'm going to welcome the ruling that you've just made, but just ask you to confirm that it is now okay, according to you, for members to question relevance of other members' speeches rather than leaving it to you, because it's a new ruling, but quite a good one.
No, it is in fact not a new ruling, and members will know that from time to time relevancy has been a call which members of both sides of the House have made, depending on whether they're on the Treasury benches or not. And if it is excessive, then warnings are given about members using that to interrupt. And I don't believe on this occasion that it was to interrupt, but really to set the standard of what is acceptable in this debate, upon which I've given my ruling. Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, I will come back to the bill, but the opposition would feel much more comfortable if they had a minister in the chair that they felt they could rely on. Mr Speaker, this is quite an important measure. This country does believe in opening up a free market for trade so that our exports can go into other countries and their imports can come and fairly compete in ours. But there is a need on occasion for safeguard measures, particularly when there is dumping and particularly when that competition is not of a fair nature. Now, my concern about the government is that this bill was introduced over 3 years ago. This is a straightforward but very important piece of legislation, and it could easily have been carried into effect at any time over the last 3 years. So my question is, why has it taken 3 years to bring this legislation back to the House? Mr Speaker, we are a member of the WTO. We're a small country. We rely on a rules-based system in international trading to protect our rights, and we need to be compliant with the WTO and the rules that it sets out. And this legislation is compliant with those rules. It is not a trade protectionist measure. It is about fair trading rules, and we support it on that basis. I welcome the fact that this introduces a system that is streamlined, and New Zealand producers and manufacturers will likewise welcome that. It will rely on expertise within the Ministry of Economic Development rather than setting up temporary safeguard authorities, and I think that that is a positive move. It will extend the time frame for the completion of safeguard investigations to 75 days. I think that also is a sensible move, Mr Speaker.
Dr Paul Hutchison.
Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak on this